Tackle today, Justice Brothers at Tackle Trading, bringing you all the charts, news, and analysis so you can make informed trading decisions each and every day. We talked about rotational aspects, bracing for the breakout in the Trading Justice podcast for the last couple of weeks. We're going to see some of that on charts with technology growth sectors taking a turn this morning. We also talked about the precision trading webinar being coming up tonight. Matt, tell us about this webinar real quick.
Yeah, two things. Definitely check out the podcast, which has been on fire with the analysis the last few weeks. So definitely check that out. And then tonight, precision trading, tackle trading webinar, the art of options trading. It's going to be a very fun webinar, very informative. Come join us if you're interested in learning about technical analysis, trading from a swing trader, short-term traders perspective. It's going to be an absolutely amazing webinar. So hopefully you guys can come join us. It's free to attend. All you have to do is go to the link below and hit that to register, and then you can come join us in precision trading here tonight.
Yeah, in the podcast yesterday, Matt, and be sure to attend that webinar. Matt's going to do a fantastic job. I know how hard he has been at work on that. Matt, we talked yesterday in the podcast or this weekend, I can't remember, my days get mixed up, about how, listen, cyclicals have had it nice. It's only a matter of time before growth probably takes a turn, right? That is a hallmark of a bull market. We're kind of seeing that today, aren't we?
Well, we're seeing that over the last 2 days. We talked about that 1 day outperformance on Friday. You're seeing the continuation of that move here today. And technology's having one of the better days in the market here today, but there is some specific technology news. You obviously have super microchip computer in the news here today, Tesla in the news here today, Intel in the news here today. And so it may just be some individual stock news, but that individual stock news has a tendency to create a little bit of momentum following. So 1 day on Friday, 2 days, Mark, a long time ago, I watched Major League, a great movie in the 1980s. And it taught me as a young lad that if you get three in a row, that's called a winning streak. And so we're on 2 on technology. Do we get a third? And does that third equate to a potential breakout in the technology space? That is an obvious open question as we come in and navigate the market at the first trading day of the month of December, coming into that seasonality. So you certainly like to see tech take a little bit of a turn, but we're still talking about that breakout from a technical perspective on the broad market index. Is just a little bit of continuation price action here today following the breakout on Friday with low volume. Let's see what the price action does throughout the day, but a little bit of a benign start to the day here today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And cyclical sectors taking a little bit of a break. We'll break that down in the trading lounge later today. Just setting up for the next move. These are hallmarks of bull markets, things taking turns, things setting up.
Yeah, you're talking about areas of the market that are slightly overextended, so it's not shocking to see a little bit of slowdown there. So no, it's a very technically driven story
It
right now.
feels like a chalk morning. And we talked about this in the podcast. It feels like a chalk morning. Matt, on the economic calendar, it's unemployment week this week. We had some manufacturing data come out today, but it's inconsequential, came in roughly just a little bit above expectations. But this is unemployment week. We'll see. One of the points you made in the podcast is like, listen, markets haven't been really reacting to economic data because there hasn't been really a reason to react because everything's been basically coming in line, slight beat, slight miss across the board. We'll see if that changes throughout the week.
Well, yeah, slight beats, slight misses, and also election, geopolitical situations. There's kind of been other things that took on greater importance, especially when you're talking about that election and talking about pricing in future expectations in those environments. You're just going to have different stories that have a greater impact on the market. And we also were coming through earnings season for a bunch of that as well. And so there was just a lot of information. But now as we start to work a little bit further away from that, economic data becomes a little bit more important. And I certainly do have a lot of respect for the labor market week. Always have respect for labor market week.
Yeah, absolutely. Individual stocks, some interesting names. What do you got?
Yeah, we got a few names in the market here today. Let's start with Intel here, as they are trying to fight some bottoming formations after 2 quarters ago, just an absolute bloodbath from an earnings report. They've been in a recovery ever since then, and a pretty decent one, quite frankly. They got a little bit of news here today as Pat Genslinger is retiring. He's a little bit of a surprise retirement, we'll have to say, from the CEO position of Intel, but they are going through some very aggressive restructuring at Intel. So I'm not surprised at the quote unquote surprise retirement of the
Yeah,
CEO.
you beat me to the joke.
Yeah, it's a quote unquote surprise retirement apparently out of the CEO out of Intel. But they got a nice little candle here today. Nice little confirmation candle, cleaning up that little drop in price from last week. Nice little hammer candle. We'll see if we can get something on Intel. I know there's a lot of people in our community looking at this Intel reversal, so that's interesting. Super microchip computer was in the news here today as well, Mark, and they got a really interesting technical development here. Number one, they were coming through a deeper retracement on the bear retracement side of the equation. They also were basically looking at some very negative news from a financial accounting perspective over the course of the last couple of quarters. They recently announced a 10-to-1 split, which is usually positive, but hasn't seen that in any capacity. But now they get a little bit of a good news. They popped pretty aggressive, up over 20% here today after an internal investigation concluded that no evidence of misconduct occurred here, despite the massive short selling here. You saw that pop, a little bit of short covering, obviously, here today. But it does look like their internal investigation concluded with no evidence of misconduct, and they're getting a little bit of a pop. Now, keep an eye on that 40 handle. That's obviously going to be a fairly important one. Remember, Supermicrochip is having some earnings situations, and so they do have some announcements coming out, but that should be interesting here tomorrow on Super Microchip Computer. See if they can complete that aggressive reversal that we're seeing happen on the technical side of the equation. And then Tesla just constantly is in the news here today as they're fighting some really overextended type situations. You're seeing some consolidation set in. It's choppy, but you are looking at the development of a continuation pattern. You're looking at this from a cup and handle perspective, and you're certainly looking at the breakout on Tesla here. Tesla rose today because the rollout of version 13, which is their FSD, their full self-driving software, they rolled it out to select customers. This is their AI feature. This is an AI conversation coming out of FSD. That is the growth story out of Tesla is FSD. They've had a couple positive news stories over the last month and a half or so. Obviously, here today is just a little bit further down the road on that FSD conversation, but a very good news coming out of FSD today. But it was not good enough to break out, and that's probably a good thing from a technical perspective. You want to see that dialed in, and now you know exactly where the breakout channel is today. And that's all we got for stocks in the news here today.
Yeah, going over dollar up, yields up on a Monday morning. It will be interesting to see how they navigate the unemployment week, right? This pretty noticeable candle in both, Matt. From a technical perspective, one of the things we talked about, we kind of maybe prematurely celebrated. I'd like to get your take on the technical, like, hey, heading into the week, dollar and yield's not an issue, and then get a power green candle on a Monday morning. What's your technical take here?
I'm not surprised. The last time we danced the 107, 106 number, it took multiple weeks for it to clear up, quite frankly. You go back in time just a little bit, and you see the last time we kind of danced this 107 breakout, there was a good 3, 4, 5 weeks in that development before eventually you closed underneath that 9 EMA on the weekly, and then it was just off to the races, back down to the downside. You haven't seen that. You had so much momentum, even with the volatility last week. You haven't even touched that 9 EMA on the weekly chart, and so you're looking at shifting volatility. Today is a continuation of that shifting volatility. Obviously, an oversized price movement here today, obviously playing a little bit of a role in capping out the price performance of the S&P 500 itself. But at the end of the day, I see this as a continuation of the shifting volatility. It took a few weeks last time. We're in the middle of that shifting volatility. I'm not surprised by a battle here. I expect more battles, quite frankly.
Let's just take a peek at gold, and then we'll call it a wrap and continue these conversations on the lounge. You've talked about how much you've hated symmetrical triangles for the entire time I've ever known you. Fighting for support, try to sell off. Is it still just messy right now? Are you not getting a clear read?
No, it's still messy. Of course, it's still messy. You still have a symmetrical triangle. You still have an increase in support in the short term. You have a decrease in resistance in the short term. And that pinch is getting very, very aggressive against both levels of the support and the resistance. Symmetrical triangles can be explosive volatility patterns. That's why I have a tendency not to love them, because I look at the left of the chart and I have a tendency to look at, well, if you break out of this resistance level and you can't catch it clean, you're going to catch it too close to the next resistance level. And so it's just something I don't love from a technical perspective, but that's a me problem. Some traders absolutely love the volatility that can happen out of a symmetrical triangle, either on the violation of the support level or the violation of the resistance level. And so, yeah, it's not we're still going through that symmetrical triangle. I still don't love it, but at the end of the day, they can be explosive volatility, and it can be both sides of the equation. There's not a real technical edge, quite frankly, in my estimation, on a symmetrical triangle. So we need to get that cleaned up a little bit. But as long as that gets cleaned up, GDX still going through a little bit of development here, and I would love a double bottom here on GDX, kind of double bottom against that 200-day moving average, really give us this beautiful reversal formation. So you're kind of in the middle of that on GDX right now. So not really forcing the conversation in the gold market here today. Silver obviously showing a little bit of downward pressure in price, as you saw, the dollar take off a little bit here today, but nothing in terms of violation of trend, violation of pattern, violation of support. Haven't really seen that. Same thing on the copper side of the equation. And so, yeah, we're seeing a little bit of aggressive price movement on the dollar here today. But I wouldn't say we're seeing an aggressive price movement in the commodities themselves. Like, to think about crude oil for a second. Crude oil is actually up on the day. So we're seeing a little bit of down on the commodity side of the equation. No violations of trends or patterns as of right now. Still going through pattern development. So, yeah, it's a little concerning on the dollar side. But again, that shifting volatility may take a little bit of time to work out.
Yeah, listen, if you want to learn to read a chart like my brother does, it's a real skill set. Attend the precision trading webinar. It is just worth your time. Get your butt in that seat and attend that webinar and go register for it right now.